Hi honeys, it's Michelle. I'm here today to do my September reading wrap-up. And I did do a video in the middle of the month that was my reading update. It's called like a mid-month check-in, I think I called it. And I wanted to tell you about that because I'm not going to talk about the books I talked about in that video as in depth. I just want to like very quickly tell you what they were. And then if you want to hear more about them, you're welcome to go check that out. But I read so many books this month, I thought it would just be too long of a video for me to talk in depth about all of them. And I wanted to do updates at the end like I have been in my mid-month check-ins because some people seem to really enjoy them. So I'm just going to fly right through the first few books here. I read The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. And this book really got me in the fall spirit, which is kind of funny because it takes place in the dead of winter and it's a super cold book. It's described as being so cold and icy and dank that I was cold the whole time I read it, but somehow it got me in the fall mood. I don't know, I'm weird, but that's what happened. I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is another one that took place in the dead of winter where it was cold and icy. I don't know, it was a weird theme for the beginning of my month when it was still almost 100 degrees or right around 100 degrees outside. I was inside just chilled to the bone reading these books. This book, though, it was so good to the point where now I want to run out and read her other books. I gave this one 5 stars as well. I don't want to take it out, but right back here, I have Horrorstor by Grady, Hendrix. I loved that one too. It took me back to my retail days, the horrors of retail, but also some of the joys of retail. And I just started reading horror novels somewhat recently. So for me, Grady Hendrix I'm getting more used to him now. This is my second book of his. And I just loved it. From cover to cover, I thought it was great. The ending was impeccable, and very few writers are good at the endings of books, I feel like. So, or maybe I shouldn't say very few. A lot of them aren't good at their endings. But this book had a good ending. I loved it. Another 5-star book for me. Then we have this one over here, Decelerate Blue. It's a graphic novel about the government controlling everyone's lives in every way, pretty much. And it was a good book. I think a lot of people would enjoy it. If you're starting to find those kinds of books to be too depressing, I wouldn't recommend it. But I did give it 3 stars. Then I read Intensity by Dean Koontz. This one was it was really good, but it was also really slow in certain parts. I can see why so many people loved it. It just wasn't quite my style. I did appreciate enough of it, though, to give it 4 stars. And so those are all the books that I read in the first half of the month. And I just kept on going. I'm telling you, it's crazy. I have been a book reading fanatic this month, and I didn't feel like I was reading that much, but I guess I am now that I think about it. Some of these books are on audiobooks, so I've been listening to them, and when I can't, like when I'm doing the dishes or whatever, or cleaning, and then also reading them in bed at night, or sometimes in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee, I'll read for a little bit, or on the weekends, I tend to spend an hour or 2 a day reading. And somehow I have just been flying through all these books. I think part of it too, though, is my insomnia. But my insomnia is over and I'm still reading a lot, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway, the next book that I read, The Tuesday Club Murders by Agatha Christie. She was such a good writer, wasn't she? It's really obvious to me why she is such a favorite for classical mystery writing. She's just amazing. I can see where a lot of writers have learned from her. My favorite stories in here, in case you've read these, this group of stories, it's also called like the 13 Mysteries or the 13 Club or something. There's all kinds of different names for this book, but it's 13 different stories. And it's a group of friends that sits around together telling mystery stories that they know the outcome of. And their friends have to guess who did it or what really happened or that kind of thing. And that's what the book is. And I really enjoyed The Idle House of Astarte. I don't know how to say that. I really liked that one. I really liked Motive versus Opportunity, The Thumb Mark of St. Peter, A Christmas Tragedy, and Death by Drowning. So out of the 13, 5 of them I really loved. And they were all good, though. I'm not saying they weren't good. It took me a little bit longer to read this book because it just, her writing is a little bit more old-fashioned than I'm used to, right? So it's harder to absorb it. I found myself rereading pages a lot, but I still really loved it. So I gave this book 4 stars. Now I wanted to read the next Charlaine Harris book in my Harper Connolly series, and for some reason my brain read it backwards or something. I read the last book next and realized it after the fact. When I picked up the next book, I realized, oh shoot, this took place before the one I just read. Oh well, it happens, right? So I'm going to review these though in the order that they were supposed to be read. Next book in the series, not that I read, is An Ice Cold Grave. It's book number 3. And in this book, Harper goes to a town in North Carolina where a group of teenage boys has gone missing. And she goes to just try to find one of them, the grave of one of them, and stumbles upon a bunch of them. But not just all the missing boys, but more than they even knew was missing. If you can imagine that, which is crazy. Sorry, my cats keep walking back and forth. I put one of your cat trees right here. You're welcome to come sit here. They just keep walking by. I don't know. The storyline was really good. So there were some things that I kind of saw coming somewhat early on, but I don't really care about that very much. What I care about is enjoying the story, and I did. I had a hard time putting it down. Now there's something I want to address, okay? And there's a little bit of a spoiler, so I will put a flashing spoiler thing up here. If you don't want to hear this, just fast forward until that's not up there anymore, okay? I mentioned when I read the last book that I had a feeling Harper and her stepbrother, Tolliver, were going to hook up. And I was really put off by it and uncomfortable with it. And in this book, it happened. And I didn't know how to feel about it. It was done very tastefully, and I was raised to be very non-judgmental when it comes to other people and how they live their lives, and very open-minded. And I just feel like I haven't been in that situation, so I can't really judge it. I've heard multiple times in my life now of stories where step siblings end up together, and so I guess just because it wouldn't work for me in my life doesn't mean it doesn't work for other people. So I'm not going to judge it, especially when, as I read on and I got into the next book, it started really hitting me how much these two almost had to end up together, because just the lives they've led and the way they seem to only be the only ones that understand each other. And then Harper has this gift, if you want to call it a gift, of being able to hear dead people that are like dead bodies through the ground or whatever. I just don't know that she would be able to have a relationship with anyone else, because so many other people would probably just judge her or maybe try to use her for something. He just seems like the perfect person for her, and they're just so such good friends and so understanding of each other and very non-judgmental of each other. They just fit together very well, I feel like. And even though it's kind of weird that they're step siblings, I decided to just let that go and be happy for them. Although if I'm honest with you, I would have gone for Manfred. If you've read the books, you know Manfred is sexy. That's who I would have gone for. But you know, I have a stepbrother that was 5 years old when I met him, and I was 13, and so that is pretty gross to me. I will always think of him as a 5-year-old, how he was when I met him. These two were teenagers when they met, and they only lived together for, I think it was a year or two before she had to go into foster home. So maybe that's part of why. You know, they were older by then. That might be, I don't know. But this was a really good book, and I gave it 5 stars. Then, what I put in the spoiler part continues in this book, and I got even more comfortable with the idea of it in this book as it progressed and was just kind of explained. But what this book really did was just tie up all the loose ends that one has read about in the first 3 books. We find out what happened to her missing sister. We find out more about the 2 sisters that live with her aunt. We find out some things about their other brother, or Tulliver's brother, and we find out some things about Tulliver's dad. It was a really good book. I had a hard time putting this one down as well. This book had, once again, it was just like the Grady Hendrix book where it had the perfect ending. She wrapped it all up and gave me a nice bow with a pretty little card on the top. It was impeccable the way she ended it. I couldn't picture it ending any other way. I just thought it was an excellent book. I gave it 5 stars also. I really do like this series, and I'm not sure, I might read it again. Now I don't know if I want to part with it because I thought it was really good, and it's a nice reminder to not be judgmental of the way other people live their lives, right? But I will say though, I still love Lily Bard is still my favorite of the Charlaine Harris protagonist group that I have read so far. I know I read a lot. I read Silent Night 2 by R.L. Stine. And I have to tell you, I just thought this was such a fun book. It was very fun to return to my teen years in the 90s. I'm so lucky that I was a teenager in the 90s. I really was. I graduated in 95. It was a great time. It wasn't as scary as I remembered it, but let's face it, I was a little bit more dramatic in my teen years than I am now. I'm not saying I'm not dramatic now, don't get me wrong, but not as bad. I loved the retail environment. The character Riva in this book and her cousin Pam, yeah, they both work at a department store. And you know, I worked a lot of retail in my life, and I have good memories and bad memories, like I said before. And I really enjoyed the holiday music, the holiday decor that was mentioned in the book, what it's like working in a department store during Christmas, because it's a lot. But it brought out some of the things that scared me about working in a department store at Christmas, or just any time of the year. I'm talking about the mannequins. You know I am. There's something weird about mannequins. And you can't help but wonder, as you're walking out the door at night, what do they do when you're not here? What do they do that 10 hours each night that the store is closed? Do they have a life of their own? Like, I don't know. It's just, there's something very creepy about mannequins. And that was in this book as well. There's also something creepy to me about elevators sometimes, which was also in this book. There's also a Sassy magazine reference, which, if you know, you know. Sassy magazine? What? Are they going to start talking about Bop next? Or what's going on? I was so excited when just that little mention of Sassy magazine, it just threw me into a teenage bliss that I haven't felt for a long time. And yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading more R.L. Stine again. And I gave this book 3 stars. It was a good book. It wasn't like spectacular. I don't think it's going to be winning a Pulitzer Prize or anything like that, but it was really good. It was entertaining. I definitely recommend it. And the last book that I read is Real Murders by Charlaine Harris. And this is the first book in the Aurora Teagarden series. This was a great story. I really enjoyed it. It took me longer than it usually does to figure out who did it. Like, I had kind of a feeling, but I had kind of a feeling about a bunch of characters. There was too many characters in this book. If you saw my video where I talk about how I annotate books, I had 1, 2, 2.5 full post-it notes of characters, which usually is just 1 post-it note, maybe 1.5, but that's like kind of a lot. And I just felt like it was really hard to keep track of everybody. I mean, there was all 12 of the people in the Real Murders Club. Then there was her co-workers and her family and the people that lived in her building. And just, I mean, it just kind of kept multiplying, and it was too many characters. Too much to keep track of in a first book in a series, in my ever so humble opinion. I found Aurora, or as she's called in this book, Ro, to be boring. Really boring. I mean, now maybe it's my fault because I read Lily Bard and Harper Connolly first, and then all of a sudden I went back to her, which this is the first protagonist that Charlaine Harris had for a series, and it was a snooze fest for me reading about this character. She's just such a good girl, like to the point of like, is anybody really that good? Come on, like, I guess. Do you want to know those people though? I'm just kidding, sort of. Anyway, I'm hoping that she spices up her life a little bit as we move forward. I guess we'll see. But for me, it's just a lot. It's kind of part of why I like Charlaine Harris is she's kind of a rated R version of what a lot of the cozy mysteries that I love are. And this protagonist feels like the protagonist in so many of the cozy mysteries. Just the perfect, petite, beautiful, thin, has money, white girl in a small town. Everybody loves her. That thing is like, ugh, right? So, I don't know. I'm going to give it another book or two. And if she's still boring at that point, because I'm expecting more from this author, I'll probably move into the Sookie Stackhouse series. I don't know what else to do because yeah. I almost find people this good and perfect, no, perfect, to be nauseating. And that's not what I'm looking for. Anyway, I gave this book 4 stars. That was the most I could give with that many negative things to say. Maybe it should have been 3. But the storyline was so good. What do you do? So I ended up reading 10 books this month. 10. That's crazy to me. And I'm already 160 pages into another one. I just don't think I'll finish it before tomorrow. So, like, I'm not going to finish it tonight. I wanted to give you my life updates. I don't have the most exciting life, but it's definitely more exciting than Aurora Teagarden's life. Like, to the point where I'm not going to tell you everything that's happened to me in the last couple of weeks, because some of them I can't tell you. Right? First off, I went to Target to get some clothing, and I got this shirt. And I wanted to show you a picture I took of the cat food aisle, because I'm starting to see shortages. When people first started talking about it, I thought, okay, shortages are coming, but now I'm starting to see them. So I wanted to show you this picture so that you could see how barren the shelves are. And I'm hearing that there's book shortages on the horizon. I'm not sure what we're going to do with that, but I wanted to let you know so that you can get prepared. Make sure that you have enough books to read in your repertoire to last you for a little while. I went and got my hair cut for the first time in, I was like 4 or 5 months. And you can't tell because it's back, but at least my little wispies are not too long like they were. And then, Brad and I got the last UFC pay-per-view. And we don't normally get the pay-per-views, but we decided that we had to. I personally love the UFC. And I really like watching fights. I just do. And it was a really good pay-per-view. It was definitely worth getting that one. The amount of fights that were on there was amazing. And we had Buffalo Wild Wings delivered to our house. It was okay. It's not as good as if you just go down there and eat. But Brad wasn't feeling well. It felt like there was something in his eye and it was kind of bothering him, and he had donated platelets. He and I are kind of funny that way. He likes to donate platelets. I like to donate blood. We're very giving. And he was feeling kind of weak, so we decided to just stay home and have the food delivered. But normally, if we were going to go to a pay-per-view, we would just go to a casino or to Buffalo Wild Wings in person. We're also trying to stay home right now with so many people seem to be getting sick right now. We're trying to avoid being around people as much as possible, right? So I also was able to, in the last 2 weeks, watch Midnight Mass. Have you seen this? And if you haven't, why? Like, if you like horror, if you like theology, watch it. It was so good. So good. I think it's going to win a bunch of awards. I thought it was wonderful. I watched it by myself because Brad, it's kind of a slow burn show. And Brad said, well, I'm not, I don't really like slow burn shows. But now that I saw the whole thing, I'm like, honey, it's a 7-part miniseries. I really think you should watch it. So now he's going to watch it with me. I'm going to watch it again because I thought it was that good. If you don't like blood and gore, though, you might not like the show. But if you don't mind it and you really want to learn more aspects of religious lore, definitely recommend it. Hi, you want to come sit with me? You do? Okay. We've got Zelda here. You guys don't see her as often, but I put some catnip up here, so she's more likely to actually hang out here today. So I had mentioned that Brad, his eye was feeling funny when we watched the UFC on Saturday. Well, last night, it got to where it just every day his eye was getting worse. And I finally took him to an eye doctor last night. I said, that's it. It's just, you have to go. And you know how some people are, oh no, I don't want to go to the doctor. I said, no, you are going. There's something wrong. I mean, his eye was swollen and it was like halfway shut. It was just, so I took him down there and he has a U-shaped tear in his cornea. And every time he blinked, it was making it bigger. Ugh, just the thought of it. Poor guy. I feel so bad for him. So, yeah, be careful with your eyes. We don't know how it happened. That's one thing everybody that knows has been asking is, well, how did it happen? We don't know. So that's kind of weird. But we do have like one of those planters, and Brad has been trying to keep some plants alive and stuff. And oddly enough, the eye doctor thought it might be that. He said a lot of people hurt their eyes while gardening. I guess when leaves fall off or snap or whatever, there's like really sharp ends that fly into the air. I've never heard of this, but so that might be what happened, or it might be sand or something that got in his eye, and maybe he kind of like scratched it and it scratched his Anyway, so that was our night last night. It ended up being a very late night, and we went to Walgreens, and they're short staffed, so we had to wait for about 45 minutes just to turn in the prescription, and then come back half an hour later, and then wait for another, I guess it was 35 or 40 minutes to get to the front of the line and actually get the medication. So it was a nightmare. Also, I just found out that somebody that was very dear to me years ago, a very dear friend that helped me out through some tough times and was always there for me, I found out she passed away. And I don't know how. I have to contact her husband and find out. But I just found out last night, and I'm really upset about it. I don't know. I always thought I would see her again or talk to her again, especially now that I live on the West Coast. And I kept thinking next time I go to visit my mom, I would probably go hang out with her or something. And I'm just so upset. Like, there was things I still wanted to say to her, and I still wanted to see her again, you know. And so I'm mentioning it because it's a reminder to not leave things unsaid with people. If there's things you want to tell people, make sure that you do that, because you never know if you're going to be able to talk to them again or not. Right, Zelda? Can you see her? She is just the cutest little thing. She's so pretty, this one. Marty's handsome, but she is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to go. I keep getting really emotional about my friend. It's just a weird thing because she apparently passed away in April, and I haven't been going on Facebook lately, and that was how we stayed in touch. And I went on there last night to see how she's doing and maybe send her a message, say hi, and it was like, oh my, whoa, what? I hope you're having a much better day than I am. But thank you so much for watching, and I will be back on Saturday to do my October TBR video. I will be playing my card game again, which I'm looking forward to. And happy reading to you. I love you. Bye. You gonna say bye? No. Okay. You want your dinner, don't you? Okay. We could do that. We could go get you your dinner.